Hey guys, this is John and you're on the JRB Tree Climbing channel. The folks in my Facebook group have been asking me about situations whereby they might execute SRT with a basal anchor. A basal anchor is one where the anchor we put on the tree, we always need an anchor when we're climbing SRT, is on the bottom of the tree, not up in the canopy. Why might we use that? So before I go any further, there's two things you need to understand about even executing this type of climb. And one is that you need enough rope, right? If you're just carrying 40 feet of rope, this is impossible because you need enough rope to get from you up to the secure crotch in the canopy, down the other side, plus the rope you need to form your secure basal anchor. This is a great reason why it always pays to have more rope than you think you need. I never hunt with less than 80 feet of rope. The second thing you need to know about using a basal anchor is that the load it places on the crotch is roughly double your weight. You need something really strong. Now, you don't need a master's degree in physics to just understand if I weigh, let's say, 200 pounds and there's a rope holding me and my full body weight at 200 pounds. When that rope goes over a tree crotch and down the other side, the tension on the other side is also 200 pounds. 200 plus 200 is 400 on the crotch. Short story here, basal anchors double the load on the canopy approximately, and you need an extra strong crotch, so you don't want to be climbing something really small. Now let's take you up into this tree. I'm going to be pointing out some features with my Maverick pole. This tree is not actually a specimen that I would execute an basal anchor SRT climb. The crotches are too small. I'm just using this because it's close to the ground and you'll be able to keep your eye on what I'm pointing out. So if you follow my Maverick pole up into the tree, you'll notice clusters of branches and you could picture even more of them. Here's another branch, and I go up a little further, there's more branches, more branches. So let's hypothetically say that from the angle of my Maverick pole, let's say I was here on the ground and I put up a throw ball and I put it over this crotch, and assume it was bigger and thicker and capable of sustaining my load in a basal anchor situation, which it's not, it's a little small. But just assume that we hit this with the throw ball and the throw ball dropped down the other side, and that left my two strands of rope coming down this tree with multiple branches between them. Now sure, we might be able to put our throw ball on the other side and bobble it and isolate the crotch that we want, but there's no guarantees. There's going to be times you got branches between the lines. So that is the first situation where we would consider a basal anchor. I would climb, let's say, the line represented by my pole, and the other line would go down to the bottom and form the basal anchor. Okay, now I'm going to come down a little further in the tree and I'm going to point out this cluster here. Let's assume that I put my throw ball up again in the orientation represented by my pole, and it captured this entire cluster of branches. And it's a great, you know, it could be one really thick branch or a series of them, but let's assume that even though I could form a canopy anchor on this, I'd be climbing in a canopy anchor, I'd be climbing right here, I'd be climbing at the middle. We always climb the middle. Well, let's say I wanted to be on this side of the tree, or let's say I wanted to be on this side of the tree. By utilizing a basal anchor, we can decide what direction we want to be positioning and climbing. If I want to be on this side of the tree, no problem. I'd form a basal anchor with the strand coming down here. If I want to be climbing on this side of the tree, no problem. I'd form a basal anchor with the strand coming down here. So that's situation two. You've got a strong crotch or multiple crotches, and you want to determine what direction you're climbing and not have to reorient in the canopy. That's situation two. And the last situation is just a messy tree. Let's say you've got a really messy tree and it's got vines and it's got a lot of branches, and you got your throw ball up and it did hit a strong crotch, but there's an awful lot of mess on the other side. You know, you might have to hit 5, 6, 10 more throws before you got what you wanted. As long as it's strong enough, if you're going to risk losing your throw ball up in that tree, especially if it's just a run and gun, a single hunt situation, I think I'd get up there with a basal anchor and then decide if I want to hunt this tree again. And for the first time climb, you can go up the basal anchor and you could bring your paracord preset. While you're up there, you could isolate the crotch you want to be on the next climb and manually install it. So risk of losing a throw ball. Now we're going to head over, I'm only going to do one climb. We're going to head over to a tree that's just out of view here, and I found a tree which kind of shows all three situations in one, and I'm going to climb that for you. Okay, so here's the tree. I executed a throw ball. It took me 2 tries to get up there, and I know that I am at about 30 feet high from the amount of throw line I have left. And let's assume that I want to be on this side of the tree when I hunt, okay? I want to be on this side of the tree. And look, the line fell on that side. Let's follow my throw ball up into the tree. And as I do so, in the background, you're going to notice there's a dead tree right behind this one. What a mess that tree is. It's got a lot of dead branches, a lot of places my throw ball could get stuck. But look at the path. If you can see that, my line went up on this side that I'm shaking, and you could see the ball, and it went over a couple different really strong crotches, and this is an oak tree. Well, hey, if I want to climb exactly where this line is, this is a perfect place to execute an SRT climb with a basal anchor, because if I even tried to climb DSRT or put up an SRT canopy anchor, well, look what happens. I've got all this junk in the way. My canopy anchor will get stuck right there and on a dead branch. That's unsafe. The safest way to climb this tree is with a basal anchor, and so I'm going to rig up my universal system and do that. Now, at this stage, we get to plan in terms of which hitch we're actually going to climb on. But since I want to climb on this side of the system, I'm going to leave both these hitches down here. I'm going to leave them both of those down here, and that's a comfortable distance. So look, I've got 80 feet of rope. I don't have a whole lot of extra rope here, but no problem. I've got enough. Let's unhook my throw ball, and let's form a basal anchor here. Now, you're not going to be able to follow this. I'm going to be tying a JRB hitch. See my dedicated video on tying the JRB hitch. And I generally like to tie it, at head height or higher. Deer have a tendency to notice anything unusual. Anything unusual, they have a tendency to notice. So the JRB hitch is an exploding hitch, and it always has to be locked. And so I'm going to lock that JRB hitch. You can lock it with a carabiner, lock it with the end of the rope, but there we go. It's locked. Okay, and now it's loaded. Now you could, yes, you could use a Maverick hitch, but if you used a Maverick hitch as a basal anchor, you want to make sure you go around the tree at not just once, but twice. You want to go around the tree twice. Now, depending on the kind of system that you're climbing, on the other side I've got 2 friction hitches. The one friction hitch is holding in this direction, but I'm not climbing in that direction. The other friction hitch is half of my DSRT system, and it's a Longhorn Zenith hitch, and it's headed in the right direction. I can climb on that. I'm comfortable climbing on that. But of course, you might have a Longhorn Agile. It depends what hitch you have. The hitch that we're using is really just a detail. Let's quick run up there. Here is my JRB Garda hitch foot loop. The rest of this is going to look pretty familiar to you, and I'll just get started. My back is going to be towards you this climb. If you ever have trouble with carabiners clanking together in your system on the way up from your guard and your bridge, one thing that I'll do is I'll get my left hand and I'll put it over the top of my garda, and that prevents anything from clanking together and gives you a good place to pull. So this is one of those trees where the canopy is such that I really don't want to go too high. I just want to be out of view of the deer, and so I'd be likely to put my platform on right here about 15 feet off the ground and hunt this tree. Let's come on down. Pop them on my muncher, and I'm going to break my Longhorn Zenith hitch. And I've got some options coming for you for a handle on the Longhorn Zenith, but I've been doing a lot of climbing with it just this way. But the thing I love about it is I can break it really easily. I wiggle it a little bit, right? This is what I mean by wiggling your hitch, to make sure it's nice and loose for rappel. So I can just tend it with one hand and come on down. Little bonus footage. I'm easily 25 feet up in my dad's tree. Dad hunted out of this tree for 40 years, and I'm taking down his permanent tree stand generation 4. Let's take a look. Stainless steel lag bolts in the tree. This is the last leg. Here's the generation 3, and that grew in permanently. These things are just death traps. And even if we climb them, we've got to be tied in. But what's my point? In order to get on this side of the tree, the only way it could get here, well, there's a great big co-dominant crotch, and I'll put my rope up, and I am on a basal anchor because I need it to be on this side of the tree. I'll show you that in a minute after we get this thing down. There's the other end of my canopy anchor. You would be surprised, I've been hunting a long time, you would be surprised at how wary deer are in terms of both sight and smell on noticing anything unusual and irregular. And so I urge you to set your basal anchor as high as possible and not to leave any slack on the ground. It's both a scent wick as well as eye candy for them. So I just unlocked my JRB hitch, right? Just unlocked it, and now I can release it. If I wanted this system to, if I wanted to return to this tree, I would attach a piece of paracord on the other side. In fact, it's a good idea. Sometimes when you're bringing something down like this with junk on the end, there's a possibility that it could get hung up on something. So I usually recommend that. But because I can see really clearly what's going on the other side of this tree, I know my risk is minimal. And I brought it down. Don't hit yourself in the head. All right, I'll coil this up. You get the idea. This tree had everything in one, and that's why I demonstrated it. So this video might appear on a couple different playlists. There's a lot of information on it. If you got any questions, let me know. Thank you.